Elliot, my aloof boss, was a fellow alpha until his secondary presentation turned him into an enigma. Assistant Isaac, you smell very unique. I looked blank. It should be my new body wash. Assistant Isaac, can I get a little closer to smell it? I sternly refused. That's not very appropriate. We need to maintain boundaries between a superior and subordinate. Assistant Isaac, I feel terrible. Help me. Afterward, I pretended nothing had happened. Later, he pinned my hands behind my back against the wall, pressing his entire body against me from behind. I hastily apologized. Mr. Elliot, I was wrong. He gave a cold snort. If you know you're wrong, don't even think about running away again. Chapter 1. It hurts, a piercing pain. Someone bit fiercely into the scent gland on the back of my neck. Sharp canines pierced the skin, and unfamiliar pheromones poured continuously into my body, shocking every nerve. Let me go. It hurts. I struggled haphazardly, my body trembling uncontrollably, my legs so weak I could barely stand. The man biting my gland reached out and hugged me. Don't move. His voice was deep and hoarse, as if he was trying desperately to endure it. Baby, be good. Mr. Elliot. The intense shock of the pheromones made me almost want to cry. I feel so uncomfortable. I'm an alpha. Why is my gland being bitten by someone like this? Does he want to mark me? How can an alpha mark another alpha? It really hurts too much. His pheromones were too overbearing, suppressing me like a physical substance. I was completely powerless to resist and could only passively endure it, physiological tears slipping down uncontrollably. The rich scent of mint and sandalwood mixed together, stimulating my sense of smell. I stared blankly at the ceiling lights. Amidst the pain and inexplicable heat, my consciousness flickered in and out. This was the airport restroom. The man biting my gland was my boss, Elliot. Half an hour ago, we were still waiting for our flight in the airport VIP lounge. Everything was calm until a high-level Omega suddenly went into heat. Their pheromones spread out of control, causing a small commotion. I am an alpha and Elliot is also an alpha, but I'm only D rank, so I was affected more severely. Trembling, I grabbed Elliot's sleeve. Mr. Elliot, I don't feel very well. Elliot immediately put a pheromone-filtering mask on me and wore one himself. I'll go buy you some suppressants. I took the opportunity to hide in a restroom stall. After Elliot returned and injected me with the suppressant, the burning heat in my body didn't diminish in the slightest. This was very strange, but I didn't have the energy to overthink it. I said to him, "It doesn't seem to be working. Mr. Elliot, you go ahead first. I'll call an ambulance myself." People with high-level pheromones have stronger control. Elliot didn't seem too affected. A suppressant patch and a mask were enough to keep his usual calm. "It's fine, no rush," Elliot said. "I'll stay with you." Pheromones between alphas are supposed to repel each other. Elliot had me stay in the stall while he smoked at the sinks outside. I tried hard to suppress the heat stirred up by the Omega's pheromones, but suddenly I felt the sandalwood scent in the restroom become 100 times richer, completely overpowering my mint scent, thick enough to choke on. Then, Elliot violently pushed open the stall door and barged in. Seeing a blazing heat in his eyes that I had never seen before, I subconsciously shrank back. "Mr. Elliot. Sorry, I think I..." Elliot's expression was pained. Before he could finish his sentence, he pulled me over and locked me tightly in his arms. First, he buried his nose deep in the crook of my neck and took a few deep breaths. Then, he roughly tore open the collar of my shirt, his thumb rubbing forcefully against the gland on the back of my neck. Accompanied by my trembling, he opened his mouth and enveloped my gland. A moment later, his canines pierced my skin. I had never felt such powerful pheromones. Coupled with the agonizing pain in my gland, tears welled up uncontrollably. He brought me out of the stall, my back leaning against the sink. With one arm around my waist and one hand pressing down on my head, I was completely powerless, leaning almost entirely against him. Through the mirror, I saw my suit jacket slipped down to the crook of my arms, my shirt wide open revealing half a shoulder, while my usually ascetic boss was enveloping me with his tall frame, greedily absorbing my pheromones. This scene was just too. I didn't dare look anymore. Strangely, I didn't actually repel his fellow alpha pheromones. Instead, I craved more, subconsciously drawing closer to him. He left my gland and suddenly kissed me. Shocked, my eyes widened, and my legs gave out, almost dropping me to my knees. He picked me up, turned, and placed me on the sink, continuing to kiss me fiercely. Elliot's pheromones erupted once again. My senses were in total chaos. Faintly, I heard footsteps coming from outside. Holy shit! What is going on here? The pheromones are too thick. Deal with it quickly, or the whole airport is going to be in chaos. I lost consciousness in the suffocating scent of sandalwood. Chapter 2. When I woke up, I thought I was in a hospital. But the people wearing white coats and special masks told me this was the Pheromone Research Institute. What is your relationship with Elliot? He's my boss. Ma'am. The researcher's tone was flat. Just to inform you, your boss has undergone a secondary presentation into an Enigma. You both need to be quarantined here for a while. Additionally, his pheromones spread across more than half the airport, causing massive flight delays. If you see related news online, don't be too surprised. I froze. Enigma? Mr. Elliot presented as an Enigma? Enigmas are an existence transcending the standard ABO genders. Their pheromones are incredibly strong, and they can even mark alphas, turning them into their exclusive omegas, an absolute top-tier existence. But their numbers are scarce. It's said that in the past decade, there have been no more than 10 recorded in each city. Mr. Elliot actually? So the suppressants were useless back then because they were affected by the pheromones of an impending Enigma presentation? I muttered to myself. The researcher nodded. It's possible. Mr. Elliot is still in the middle of his presentation. His pheromones are highly unstable, so he's temporarily isolated. Therefore, there's a matter we need your input on. I asked, what is it? The researcher said, he temporarily marked you during his presentation and is now in a state similar to an alpha-susceptible period. If you are willing to accompany him through this time, it would help his pheromones stabilize much faster. I hesitated and asked, accompanying him through this means? The researcher kept it strictly business. Exactly what you think it means. Oh, meaning coupling like an omega and an alpha. And if I'm not willing? Not willing. The researcher seemed surprised, pausing before saying, then we might need to take coercive measures. After all, an Enigma with disordered pheromones is extremely difficult to control. Coercive measures. My fingers curled up involuntarily. Let me think about it. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. After mulling it over repeatedly, I still felt this arrangement was highly inappropriate. Elliot had always kept a clear line between public and private matters, not to mention he was my direct superior. Being bitten once during that sudden emergency at the airport was understandable, but helping him through his presentation period. That level of intimate contact would definitely make our future interactions awkward. Before falling asleep, I had firmly decided to refuse. The next day, the researcher asked how my deliberation went. I intended to refuse outright, but when the words reached my lips, they mysteriously turned into, could you let me see Mr. Elliot first? I really shouldn't have looked. Elliot was isolated in a room in the top-floor quarantine zone. Behind a heavy iron door was another set of iron bars, just like a prison. Seeing him with a bulky metal muzzle on his face, his right hand chained to the bed, curled up and sleeping, my anger instantly flared. How can you treat him like this? This is Elliot, the brightest rising star in the tech industry, a universally praised genius, the forever graceful, always effortless Elliot. How could he be locked up here like a criminal? We don't want it to be like this either. The researcher shrugged. But an Enigma undergoing presentation is very dangerous. Their intense craving for pheromones makes them extremely aggressive. If it weren't for the sedatives keeping him asleep, you'd very likely be seeing him in a completely frenzied state right now. I tightly gripped the iron bars in front of me. A moment later, I bit down hard on my lip. All right, I'll stay with him through his presentation. In that isolation room at the Institute, completely cut off from the outside world, Elliot's Enigma presentation fever ebbed and flowed like the tide. The entire process lasted intermittently for 10 days. 10 days later, carrying a heavily battered scent gland and a body covered in marks, I was the first to leave. After returning home, I slept for 3 whole days before barely regaining my energy. Returning to work at the company, almost everyone knew that Elliot had undergone a secondary presentation into an Enigma. Not only because of the change in his pheromones, but also because during the first year after an Enigma's presentation, to prevent abnormal pheromone fluctuations from causing riots, they are required to wear a muzzle and a strong suppression collar in public until they can freely control their powerful pheromones. As for me, everyone only knew that I was with Elliot at the time and thus had to be quarantined for a bit. They didn't know anything else. Inside the office, I saw Elliot. Unlike the specially made muzzle from the Institute, the daily use model, although also made of metal, was much lighter. It covered the lower half of Elliot's face, projecting a unique texture amidst its coldness. Because of this, his beautiful eyes appeared even more prominent. When he raised his gaze to look over, I couldn't help but lose my focus for a moment. Suddenly, the image of his eyes burning red with desire flashed before my mind. Assistant Isaac, about last time at the airport, I am very sorry. Elliot's deep voice snapped me back to reality. I quickly said, "It's all right, Mr. Elliot. It happened so suddenly. No one could have predicted it. Are you doing well? Was your body greatly affected?" he asked. "I'm fine, not too much of an impact." I shifted my gaze away guiltily. In truth, the wounds on my scent gland still hurt even now, and the bruises on my body hadn't completely faded. But I would absolutely never tell him, because he had no idea it was me who stayed with him through his presentation. Before leaving the institute, I learned from the researcher that during an Enigma's initial presentation, due to their pheromones exerting absolute control over their body and consciousness, they mostly have blurry memories of that period after the presentation is complete. It's like a person's memory of a dream. Some might even have no recollection at all. Just telling you so we can avoid misunderstandings later. Don't worry, we'll tell him what happened during his presentation, the researcher had said at the time. I originally felt a bit regretful for being soft-hearted in the moment, wondering how I should explain to Mr. Elliot that I didn't do it out of personal feelings. Hearing that he might not remember anything, I immediately felt a massive wave of relief and hurriedly asked the researcher if they could help me hide it. At first, the researcher disagreed, even saying that if I could establish a long-term marking relationship with the Enigma, it would be extremely beneficial for stabilizing his pheromones and would reduce a lot of trouble. Otherwise, he'll have to regularly visit the institute to extract the pheromones that easily build up in his body. No, I hurriedly waved my hand. Even if he is my boss, helping him up to this point is enough. Helping him further would really cross the line. You've got to be kidding me. Forming a long-term marking relationship with Elliot. Wouldn't that just make me my boss's bed partner? I'd be crazy to agree to that. Chapter 3. During the lunch break, while everyone else in the office was resting, I slipped into the restroom to change the dressing on the wound on my scent gland. Fortunately, my shirt and suit collar blocked it, and I had specifically cut a small piece of gauze, which is why the wound had gone unnoticed all this time. Standing in front of the mirror, I loosened my tie, unbuttoned a few buttons, pulled down my collar, and gently peeled off the medical tape. "Assistant Isaac?" The voice coming from behind made the hand holding the medicine tremble. Elliot took large strides until he was right in front of me. He pulled back my back collar with one hand, completely exposing the wound on my scent gland to his line of sight. "What happened?" His voice was deep. "Damn it, doesn't he usually need his alarm to ring for a long time before he wakes up from his nap? I should be the one asking what happened." I let out a dry laugh. "Mr. Elliot, you didn't take a nap? Just woke up." A trace of unnaturalness flashed across Elliot's face. "This wound. Is it from the airport last time? Did I bite you?" As he said the last few words, he noticeably lowered his voice. "No." I subconsciously denied it, only realizing after speaking that it was hard to find another excuse for a wound in this specific location. "Are you dating someone?" Elliot suddenly said faintly. "Seems like a very special Omega." I realized his gaze had fallen on my open collar, right at my collarbone, where there were obvious, unfaded hickeys. I hastily pulled my collar closed. "No, where would I find the time to date?" In this situation, letting him misunderstand that I have a partner would clearly be better, but for some reason I just denied it. "It's just, an accident." Elliot immediately put on an "I understand" expression. It seems working for me puts Assistant Isaac under a lot of stress. I gave a dry haha, with the boss saying that how could I dare reply. "But you still need to take care of your health," Elliot said as he walked over to the adjacent sink. He took off his muzzle and washed his face. Seeing me awkwardly trying to apply medicine to the back of my own neck, he dried his hands and took the cotton swab from me. "Let me." The cotton swab soaked in medicine was slightly cold. When it rubbed across the still throbbing wound on the back of my neck, I couldn't help but flinch. "I'll be gentler." Elliot lightened his movements and actually leaned in slightly, gently blowing on the wound while applying the medicine. That was my scent gland, the most sensitive place on my entire body. The breath of an Enigma brushing past made my hands, which were gripping the edge of the sink, suddenly tighten, and my breathing grew rapid. This is bad. After forming a deep mark with an Enigma, it's actually this easy to react to his proximity. I immediately turned around. "That's good enough. I'll do the rest myself." Elliot seemed a bit surprised by my overreaction, but his gaze quickly drifted to the side. He picked up his muzzle and put it back on. Sorry. I'm still not used to having presented as an enigma. After Elliot left, I looked back at the mirror and finally realized why his gaze was drifting just now. My ears and neck were completely red. My vision went black. I must maintain my distance. From now on, I absolutely must maintain a distance from Mr. Elliot. I'm doomed. I can't maintain my distance from Elliot. I need his pheromones. I need them like crazy. The researcher explained it to me over the phone. This is very normal. An enigma's pheromones are very special. Their temporary marks remain effective much longer than an alpha's, not to mention the two of you formed a deep mark. Even if the scent has dissipated, the influence is still there. As long as the temporary mark hasn't expired, you will need his pheromones to soothe you. It's all my fault. Back then, I was so terrified Elliot would wake up that I was in a rush to leave. I only asked the Institute for a potion that could rapidly dissipate the scent and ran off, completely ignoring the precautions. It's not a big problem, the researcher said. First, you can engage in intimate physical union with him. Second, you can carry an item tainted with his pheromones. Something personal like clothes or a blanket will do. You call that not a big problem? It's a massive problem. My boss's personal items? Are you telling me to go steal them? Isn't that just being a pervert? I lay paralyzed on my bed like a fish dying of thirst. Are there really no medications or suppressants I can use? Not at the moment, dear. The researcher's tone suddenly sounded exactly like a useless customer service rep. Enigmas are a new gender that only appeared in recent decades due to genetic mutation. We haven't even figured out the mechanisms of their presentation yet. Our research in all areas is still lagging behind. However, it seemed heaven was helping me. Elliot was preparing to organize his walk-in closet and get rid of a batch of old clothes. As his personal assistant, this job naturally fell onto my shoulders. In all the years I had worked for him, I had never had a second thought, nor had I ever taken advantage of him in the slightest. This time, secretly keeping a few sets of his loungewear made me feel incredibly guilty. The overwhelming sense of shame caused me to have nightmares for several nights in a row. In my dream, Elliot pinned me against the wall and pinched my chin. You want my pheromones? Beg me, and I'll give them to you. I shook my head desperately, my face covered in tears, my voice choking with sobs. Mr. Elliot, I'm sorry, I don't want them anymore. Please don't fire me. Elliot gave a cold sneer and tore open my shirt. Little assistant, your mouth says no, but your body is quite honest. Accompanied by my screaming and his wicked laughter, I jolted awake. Waking up to find myself still wearing his clothes, my face instantly burned, and I hurriedly rushed into the bathroom to take a cold shower. Coincidentally, lately, it seemed Elliot hadn't been sleeping well either. That day, there was an industry summit to attend in a neighboring city. In the morning, I arrived at his house early to wake him up, prepare his breakfast, and get his suit ready as usual. Seeing him yawning frequently, I casually asked while tying his tie, Mr. Elliot, haven't you been resting well lately? Your dark circles are getting heavier. A little bit. Elliot looked in the mirror with half-open eyes. I've been dreaming a lot lately. Can't sleep peacefully. Nightmares? Not exactly. Elliot suddenly looked down at me. Because I was tying his tie, my gaze had been fixed on his neck, and I clearly saw his Adam's apple bob. Feeling inexplicably nervous, I sped up my movements and pulled the knot tight. Who knew? I didn't even use that much force, but he was actually pulled forward by the momentum. I subconsciously stepped back, my back pressing against the mirror. He didn't pull away. Instead, he reached out and propped his hands on either side of me, tilting his head to lean in closer. Assistant Isaac, what perfume are you using? It smells really good. Elliot's gaze was a bit dangerous. If it weren't for the muzzle, I would genuinely be afraid he was going to bite me. No, I don't use perfume. I blinked, feigning composure. It might be my pheromones. Elliot thought for a moment. It seems a bit different. I can't really describe it. I said, maybe it's the scent of my body wash. If you like it, I can change yours to the same one next time. Elliot took 2 more deep sniffs, unable to get too close due to the muzzle. I reminded him, Mr. Elliot, it's time to go. He revealed a rare look of irritation and clicked his tongue. Change it tomorrow. I was taken aback. What? The body wash, he emphasized specifically. The kind you use. Chapter 4. All day, Elliot seemed to be in low spirits. It wasn't noticeable while he was working, and he maintained his usual grace when socializing with others, but I noticed him tugging at his tie several times, only to retie it himself right after, a clear sign of annoyance. During the lunch break, we returned to the hotel to rest. The organizers had booked a suite. After walking through the door, Elliot sat down on the sofa, unknotted his tie, and tossed it aside. I poured a glass of hot water, bent down to place it on the coffee table, and was just about to stand up when he suddenly grabbed my wrist. "Assistant Isaac," he said, looking at me seriously. "I have a request." I was a bit confused. "I'm his assistant. Running errands is my job. Why so suddenly formal?" "Sure, what do you need me to do? Can you let me get closer to smell your scent?" Elliot speaking these words with his deep, magnetic voice threw my mind into utter chaos. I tried hard to maintain my composure and listened to his explanation. Ever since presenting as an enigma, my sense of smell seems to have grown more sensitive. There were too many people at the venue today, and the mix of pheromone scents was too messy. "My nose feels terrible. But Assistant Isaac, your scent smells very good." As he said this, he himself seemed a bit confused. But I understood something. Actually, my scent hadn't changed at all. The body wash I mentioned in the morning was just an excuse. What body wash fragrance could overpower pheromones? Him suddenly liking my scent was highly likely due to the temporary mark. Even though he didn't know it himself, it might just be that my mint scent is relatively fresh. I offered a reasonable explanation, then refused. "But Mr. Elliot, there is a boundary between an enigma and an alpha. It's not very appropriate." Elliot's tone carried a hint of disappointment. "Not even with the muzzle on?" I insisted. "It's not a good idea. How about I go buy you a bottle of peppermint essential oil?" Elliot pressed his temples. "All right." The result, naturally, was useless. Elliot remained very irritable, sticking close to me all afternoon. Even when I went to the restroom, he managed to casually say, "Let's go together." From his expression, it didn't look like he was intentionally following me, but that was exactly what was happening. A few days ago, Elliot was supposed to go to the pheromone researchers to have his accumulated pheromones extracted. Because work was too busy, he had me postpone the appointment until after this business trip ended. I originally thought a delay of about a week wouldn't be a big deal, but looking at it now, we really shouldn't have pushed our luck. The researchers were right. An enigma without a long-term partner truly encounters a lot of trouble. I couldn't help but bring this up with Elliot. He raised an eyebrow. "Are you advising me to start dating?" I said, "It's not entirely out of the question to consider it." Elliot didn't seem too happy, ending the conversation with a simple, "I have no interest in that at the moment." On the third day, the summit concluded successfully. The organizers had originally planned an open-air buffet reception, but it ended early due to a sudden torrential downpour. Elliot didn't like socializing anyway, so he politely declined dinner invitations from several CEOs and returned to the hotel suite with me. For some reason, I had felt sore and weak all day. After having a simple meal ordered from the hotel with Elliot, I retreated to my own room to rest. While I was showering, a clap of thunder suddenly rolled past the window. Following a loud boom, the lights in the room went out, plunging everything into darkness. Panicked, without even drying off properly, I threw on some clothes haphazardly and stumbled out of the room. Unexpectedly, Elliot was right at the door, and I crashed straight into his chest. "Assistant Isaac, are you all right?" I have an extreme phobia of pitch-black darkness where you can't even see your own fingers. As a boss who had spent day and night with me for several years, Elliot knew this very well. Once, we got stuck in an elevator together. The claustrophobia combined with the darkness terrified me so much I shrank into a corner, trembling. It was him sitting beside me, gently patting my back, that made the time bearable. This time was no different. Elliot didn't push me away. Instead, he hugged me. I tightly gripped the corner of his clothes, practically using him as a fulcrum, and followed him to sit down on the sofa. The hotel manager called to say it would take some time to repair the circuits. I leaned helplessly against Elliot, feeling like every second was a century long. "Assistant Isaac." In the darkness, Elliot suddenly called my name, his voice tight. "Are you in your susceptible period?" I was bewildered, but the next second, I smelled a rich, spicy mint scent in the air. "I'm doomed. I'm doomed. I'm doomed." My brain felt like it had caught a virus, filled entirely with those words. What susceptible period? Soreness? Weakness? These were symptoms of impending heat. An alpha, was actually experiencing a heat just like an omega because I was temporarily marked by an enigma. At this, I couldn't care less about being afraid of the dark. I immediately put distance between Elliot and me and stood up from the sofa. Probably, It's better if I stay alone. My steps were rushed and messy. I hadn't taken 2 steps before I tripped over the coffee table and stumbled back onto the sofa. No, I fell right onto Elliot's lap. Elliot immediately wrapped his arms around my waist, preventing me from getting up. What are you panicking for? Perhaps because the power outage was too sudden, Elliot hadn't had time to put on his muzzle. At this moment, his chin rested gently on my shoulder. Without the muzzle's barrier, his lips were almost touching my scent gland, and he seemed to swallow hard. Assistant Isaac, are you lying to me? What kind of alpha's susceptible period makes an Enigma lose their reason? The next second, his thumb suddenly pressed down hard on my scent gland. A jolt of electricity instantly shot through my entire body, and my legs went weak as I slumped against him. Is it because you haven't gone to the institute to have your pheromones extracted on time? That's why you're losing control so easily. I searched for excuses, trying to make my voice sound as steady as possible. Chapter 5. Ultimately, people's understanding of enigmas isn't deep enough. So even if Elliot was suspicious, he wouldn't be able to find out anything. Besides, what I said wasn't entirely wrong. He really was in an active pheromone period right now. So troublesome, Elliot muttered under his breath. As he spoke, his warm breath brushed across my scent gland in waves. The rich sandalwood scent continuously assaulted my senses, as if commanding me to submit. I felt a little like crying. We'll go to the research institute as soon as we get back tomorrow. Let's just buy some strong suppressants to get through tonight. Elliot sounded dissatisfied. Is there no other way? I was just about to say no when I cried out in pain. My scent gland was probably swollen, and he had gently pinched it with his fingers. The force was very light, but the stimulation was immense, making me cry out uncontrollably. Assistant Isaac, I feel terrible. Help me. I wanted to refuse, but my body wouldn't listen. Without waiting for my answer, Elliot gently turned my face and kissed me. In the darkness, vision disappeared, but my other senses became exceptionally acute. Next to my ear were his pants and the sound of clothes rubbing together. His slightly cool hands slid across my lower back, trailing over my skin like a snake. My reason had long since flown out the window. I needed him, craved him, and even wanted to beg him. He was Elliot, heaven's chosen, the center of attention wherever he went. If it weren't for that accidental secondary presentation, how could I have ever gotten his kiss? How could I have ever made him lose control for me? Because it was him, I was destined to give up resisting, just as I was destined to walk into that isolation room back then and accompany him through his long presentation period. I pushed Elliot away. He thought I was leaving and hurriedly grabbed my waist, but I just changed positions and straddled him. When he kissed me again, Elliot was noticeably much more urgent. The root of my tongue ached from his kiss. I wanted to escape, but couldn't bear to part from it. Our pheromones blended, our kiss inseparable, and I was completely submerged in it. Suddenly, the lights came on. I felt an annoyance, as if a beautiful dream had been interrupted. Elliot was also startled. He had his head buried, licking my scent gland, and was trying to take off my shirt. He lifted his head, a dazed look on his handsome face that made my heart race. The power's back. Elliot suddenly picked me up. Let's go to the bedroom. I quickly hooked my legs around his waist. When I was pressed into the soft mattress, I closed my eyes, waiting for him to lean down and kiss me. But Elliot suddenly asked in surprise, Assistant Isaac, are you wearing my clothes? Damn it, I forgot. These past few days, I could only fall asleep while wearing clothes carrying his pheromones. So when packing for the business trip, I secretly slipped 2 of his loungewear sets into my suitcase. At the time, I thought that even if we stayed in the same hotel, the boss wouldn't just casually enter my room, so wearing them to sleep shouldn't be discovered. Who knew we'd encounter something like a power outage, throwing me into complete disarray. In an instant, I felt all the blood rush to my face. Secretly wearing my boss's clothes as pajamas and getting caught red-handed. How much of a pervert must I look like in his eyes? I desperately tried to find a reasonable explanation, but my brain was like a jammed machine, unable to turn at all. I just needed your pheromones. Ultimately, I chose to tell half the truth. Last time at the airport, you bit my scent gland, so I need your pheromones. I closed my eyes in embarrassment. Mr. Elliot, I'm sorry. Elliot let out a soft chuckle, his thumb wiping the corner of my eye. What is there to cry about over this? You just had to tell me. Why wouldn't I help you? Only then did I realize I was actually crying. I bit my lip and shook my head. We were just superior and subordinate. How could I possibly make such a request of my boss? My assistant, Isaac. Elliot sighed and leaned down to kiss me. You're too good at hiding things. You made me think I was a... The last few words were swallowed by the kiss, and I didn't hear them clearly. But I no longer had the energy to think about it. In just a moment, I lost all my shame and resistance within the Enigma's powerful pheromones, my body turning as soft as a puddle of water. Just as things were about to spiral out of control, Elliot suddenly stopped and asked from above, Assistant Isaac, do you like my pajamas? I bit my lip hard and said nothing. Elliot gave a soft, My voice was as small as a mosquito's. What else of mine do you like? I turned my head away in embarrassment, but he pinched my chin, forcing me to look at him. Tell me, Assistant Isaac, what else of mine do you like? Pheromones. His aura was too strong, and he was teasing me elsewhere. I could only say with a sob, I like your pheromones. And what else? I like your eyes, your mouth, your hands. Everything about you. Mr. Elliot, you will never know how much I admire you. Couldn't go on. Every word I said felt like stripping off an item of clothing in front of him. My shame reached its peak. Good boy. My pheromones. I'll give them all to you. Elliot kissed me as if as a reward, and gave me even more of his pheromones. I went from parched to fulfilled. Every cell and every drop of blood in my body felt as if it had melted into his scent. Fortunately, he still maintained his reason and didn't give me another temporary mark. I couldn't bear any more. I am self-aware. No matter what happened with Elliot, ultimately, I still have to return to the position of an assistant. After all, everything is just the fault of the pheromones. Chapter 6. The next day, I deliberately woke up earlier than Elliot, returned to my own room to get completely ready, and only then went to his room as usual to open the curtains, wake him up, and remind him of the flight time. Seeing me in a full suit, Elliot asked in a hoarse voice, Why didn't you sleep a little longer? I said, Work still needs to be done, Mr. Elliot. Elliot paused for a moment. Last night was just an accident. I understand, Mr. Elliot. I will treat it as if it never happened. Elliot frowned. After a while, he gave a cold sneer. Isaac, you certainly have a lot of accidents. Took me a second to process before I realized he was mocking me. Previously, when changing my dressing in the company restroom, I had also said that was an accident. I said nothing. How many omegas have you slept with? Elliot suddenly asked. Pursed my lips. I don't know. So, a lot then. Not really. In truth, I never did one-night stands. Have you ever been on the bottom before? No. How did it feel? I didn't know how to answer. I paused before saying, Mr. Elliot, the flight is very early today. Let's not be late. Elliot actually had a bit of a temper when waking up. At this moment, he was clearly very unhappy. He violently threw off the covers and walked into the bathroom with a dark expression. I started helping him pack his luggage. While checking the desk, I accidentally knocked his fountain pen off. The pen was uncapped and rolled under the bed. Left with no choice, I had to take off my jacket, tuck my tie into my shirt, kneel on the floor, and lean down to reach for it. Suddenly, I felt someone gently kick my butt. Turning my head, I saw Elliot had finished showering and was standing behind me. His hair was slightly wet, his face expressionless, and he was looking down at me. Suspecting it was an illusion, I asked hesitantly, Mr. Elliot, what's wrong? At that moment, Elliot raised his foot and used his toe to trace a gentle arc downwards from my buttocks. It wasn't an illusion. My face instantly turned completely red. Assistant Isaac, you certainly have the capital to be a playboy. Saying this faintly, Elliot turned and walked away. The boss's mood was a bit off. Couldn't read him. Ever since becoming his assistant, apart from the initial period of mutual adjustment, I hadn't felt this way for a long time. Elliot had gone through 5 assistants. 2 were fired before passing their probation, and 2 didn't even last a year. Only I had been by his side for almost 5 years. Colleagues I was on good terms with in the company told me that when I first arrived, many people bet I definitely wouldn't last long either, because I looked too green, unable to handle the grind. It wasn't surprising. I had just graduated back then and knew nothing. Coupled with Elliot being a notorious workaholic, it was very normal for everyone to think a rookie like me couldn't stick it out. But against all odds, I stayed. Later, even Elliot himself said, Assistant Isaac, you understand me better than I understand myself. My colleagues joked that I was Mr. Elliot's exclusive assistant. But in my heart, I knew clearly that this so-called understanding was merely the result of careful observation and patient record-keeping. When I first joined, my phone's memo app was completely filled with notes about Elliot, recording everything from his living habits to his working style. I never expected that now, facing him, I would have that feeling of unease again. Furthermore, this feeling had been appearing frequently lately. At work, Elliot was still as rigorous and responsible. That point hadn't changed. But outside of work, I don't know if it was my imagination, he seemed a bit more distant towards me. In the past, during breaks, we would chat about topics outside of work. Now, he was always lukewarm, and I didn't dare speak casually, only allowing the atmosphere to grow increasingly awkward. Today, Elliot had seemed very irritable since the morning, even uncharacteristically staring at me absent-mindedly during the morning meeting. Several times when I entered his office to deliver coffee or documents, I caught him frowning as he looked at me, looking me up and down as if he wanted to say something. Remembering he had mentioned being sensitive to smells before, I asked carefully during the afternoon break, "Mr. Elliot, are there too many people coming and going in the office, making the sense too messy? Do you need me to arrange for the installation of an air purification system?" He was leaning against the back of his chair, resting his eyes. Hearing me, he gave a soft, "Mum." I was preparing to leave when he suddenly opened his eyes and asked with a look of impatience, "Assistant Isaac, exactly what time did you finish playing around with someone last night?" Thinking he had noticed me constantly yawning, I hurriedly apologized. "Sorry, Mr. Elliot. I will pay attention in the future." Unexpectedly, this made him even angrier. "Do you need to relax that badly? You couldn't even hold back on a workday." Only then did I understand. He had once again misunderstood that I had spent the night with someone. "Do you know the clothes you're wearing don't fit at all? Do you want everyone to know you didn't go home last night?" Me. It wasn't what he thought at all. Last night, a friend of mine went through a breakup and called me over to his place to drink. In the end, we both drank too much. When I woke up in the morning, my clothes were too wrinkled to wear, and there was no time to go home and change, so I had to borrow his suit. My friend is a beta, and his build is smaller and thinner than mine as an alpha, so his clothes were indeed a bit tight on me. But if you didn't look closely, it was actually fine. Except for Elliot, no one had asked me about my clothes. Still, the same old saying applied. If the boss is angry, just admit your mistake. "I'm sorry. I won't let personal matters affect my work in the future." I lowered my head and apologized sincerely. Elliot didn't press further, only saying coldly, "Assistant Isaac, I hope you can be more responsible towards your work." "No, towards everything." "No way, you really want to let him go? What is there to be reluctant about? I'll just hire another assistant." Inside Elliot's office, he seemed to be chatting. Standing outside the half-open door holding documents, my mind went blank with a loud buzz upon hearing, "Hire another assistant." And I withdrew the hand that was just about to knock. The vice president asked with a laugh, "With your high standards, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to find someone suitable again, right?" Elliot said faintly, "Try a few more. There will always be someone competent." "Tisk," the vice president said, setting aside his work ability, just based on those looks, keeping Isaac around is pleasant on the eyes. It really will be a bit of a pity not seeing him around the company in the future. "Say that again?" Elliot's voice noticeably cooled down. The vice president laughed. "I have no interest in alphas. It's purely appreciation." "Assistant Isaac," phone call. At that moment, the phone on my desk rang, and a passing colleague reminded me. I hurriedly turned and left. Chapter 7. All day long, I thought about what exactly I had done wrong. After thinking it over and over, there was only one possibility. Elliot had always maintained a clear line between public and private matters. Having sexual relations with his own assistant, whether because of pheromones or something else, was something his personality absolutely could not tolerate. Thinking carefully, his attitude towards me really did start changing after the night of the power outage. The reason he dragged it out this long before making a decision was probably out of consideration for our years of working together, right? All right, if that's the case, I can only accept it. After all, I was the one who crossed the line first. If my brain hadn't short-circuited into deciding to help my boss through his secondary presentation back then, all those later incidents of losing control over pheromones wouldn't have happened at all. I was the one who crossed the line without his permission. The consequences of crossing the line, I should bear them. It's fine, it's just a job. With my abilities and experience, would it be hard to find another good job? It's not that no one has tried to poach me over the years. I just had feelings for my first job and never agreed. People must always strive for higher places, right? This might be an opportunity for me to take a break and start over. I kept comforting myself that it was no big deal, that I wouldn't be unemployed. Yet, I still couldn't control myself from drinking the I don't know how many th glass of alcohol tonight. Elliot, that bastard. He pulls up his pants and refuses to acknowledge me. Evil capitalist. Tossing me away just because he feels like it. He has no humanity. I didn't even make any major mistakes. He can't short me a single cent of my severance pay. And my annual leave. I've worked for him for so many years and never taken a single vacation. What a huge loss. No, I absolutely have to take all this leave back. Early the next morning, I messaged Elliot saying I had an urgent matter at home and wanted to take an extra long block of annual leave. Since the new year was approaching anyway, I just requested leave until after the holidays. Elliot asked what the matter was. I said it was a private matter and inconvenient to discuss. He took a long time to reply. All right, tell Human Resources. You can fill out the leave request form when you get back. At least he has some conscience. The reason for the leave was made up, but I really did go home. I had to come back for the new year anyway. So since I had the time off, it was good to spend time with my parents a bit earlier. On the first day home, my parents were exceptionally enthusiastic. By the third day, they started complaining that I woke up too late and moved around too little. On the fifth day, the blind date arrangements began. This transition happened so fast I couldn't even react. While dealing with them, I hugged my laptop and updated my resume. I uploaded it to a job recruitment website, blocked my current company, and casually changed my job-seeking status to currently unemployed. The end of the year isn't a hiring season. I didn't expect to find a job immediately. I was just looking around. Unexpectedly, within 3 days of uploading my resume, I received calls from several headhunters asking if I had already resigned, what kind of position I was looking for, and what my expected salary was. A senior from university who I was on good terms with even directly asked me if I was interested in joining his company. Actually, he had reached out to me a year ago when he first returned to the country to start his business, but I had no intention of leaving then, so the matter was dropped. This time, he somehow found out I was job hunting, brought the matter up again, and specifically called to introduce his company's situation. By the time I hung up the phone, it was already very late. I was just preparing to sleep when Elliot's call came in. I picked it up, a bit surprised. Mr. Elliot, is something the matter? Elliot's low voice came through the receiver. Who were you on the phone with tonight? For so long. I answered vaguely. A friend. What friend? He pressed. Just a friend. Boyfriend or girlfriend? Neither. Then what kind of friend? A friend. Elliot sounded as if he laughed out of frustration, asking, You'll be at home tomorrow, right? I gave a mem. Then I'll come find you tomorrow. I jolted upright in bed. What are you coming to find me for? Just dropping by to see you since it's on the way. I don't know if it was my imagination, but I felt like he was gritting his teeth when he said that. The next day, Elliot really did drive across the city to the bottom of my apartment building. I hurried downstairs, but he pulled several high-end gift boxes from the trunk, saying he was going up to visit my parents. I was incredibly confused. Mr. Elliot, there's no need for this, right? With my boss personally showing up at the door, my parents will think I've caused some disaster at the company. Then just don't say I'm your boss. Elliot carried the items and knocked on my door anyway. Both my parents were AOs with relatively weak pheromones. Facing an Enigma with absolute pheromonal suppression, they appeared somewhat constrained. Elliot didn't say he was my boss, and I didn't bring it up either, only saying he was a friend on a business trip who dropped by to see me on the way. My mom didn't quite believe it. She pulled me aside and asked secretly, This isn't your boyfriend, is it? You haven't been the one on the bottom, have you? I directly ignored the latter question and only answered the former, No. My mom breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. I also invited Derek over for dinner tonight. Mom! I instantly grew anxious. I told you there's nothing between us. Why did you invite him over? The Derek my mom was talking about was the guy who sat in front of me in high school, an A-rank Omega who was very good-looking. I liked him a lot back then. As long as he turned around and smiled at me, I could be happy for the whole day. For so many years, I thought I had kept this secret crush hidden very well, until after graduating from university. My mom suddenly brought it up, saying my teacher had seen through it long ago and had even contacted the parents during my senior year. Recently, my mom met Derek's mom at the matchmaking corner in the park. The two hit it off instantly and decided to set us up. Why else would I invite him over? To create an opportunity for you, of course. My mom glanced at Elliot, then blamed me. Why didn't you say earlier that a friend was coming? Now the two of them are going to clash. I was truly speechless. How was I supposed to know why my boss insisted on paying a home visit to console an employee's family? Chapter 8. At the dining table, my parents bustled about, one moment telling Elliot to eat more, the next telling Derek to make himself at home, while intentionally steering the conversation toward high school memories. Derek, you and Isaac had a pretty good relationship in high school, right? My mom said exaggeratedly. Even the teachers thought you two were dating, ha ha ha. Really? Derek looked a bit embarrassed. Not quite, but our relationship was indeed quite good. I remember back then we would run into each other on the bus every day, and he often brought me breakfast. Isaac, do you still remember? I felt Elliot's gaze immediately shoot towards me. Haha. I gave a dry laugh. I think so. It was mostly on the way. How was it on the way? My mom exposed me. Our two houses weren't in the same direction at all. I think you purposely went out of your way to take that bus, right? No wonder you woke up so early every day back then. Having my silly teenage antics heard by my boss made me incredibly awkward. I gently kicked my mom's leg under the table. As a result, Elliot turned his head and asked me, "What is it?" Ah, I kicked the wrong person. This meal was truly torturous. After dinner, my mom strongly hinted that I should walk Derek home. Just as I was silently battling her, Elliot stood up and said, "It's getting late. I won't disturb you any longer. I'll come visit again another day." Derek also stood up to take his leave. My mom pushed me out. "Isaac, go see them off." Elliot immediately said, "Leave together? I'll drive you." It was a sin. I actually made my boss act as my personal driver. On the way to take Derek home, we sat in the back row chatting. Elliot occasionally looked at me through the rearview mirror. I caught his eye every time, and I got the distinct feeling he wasn't in a very good mood. "Isaac, a few high school classmates are planning to go to a bar. Do you want to come along?" Derek suddenly asked. I thought about it. There were indeed some classmates I hadn't seen in years, so I agreed. "Let's go take a look." Elliot asked, "How are we getting there?" I felt bad bothering him further. "Mr. Elliot, you head back to the hotel first. We'll grab a cab ourselves." "It's fine," Elliot said. "I have nothing going on today. Just give me the address." With Derek right there, I didn't want to argue with him. I leaned forward, took his phone, opened the map app, and set the navigation. After getting out of the car, Derek asked, "Is he really your boss?" This was something I had told him during our chat on the road. I nodded. "Yeah." Derek was a bit surprised. "You can actually just casually touch your boss's phone." I froze for a moment. Elliot's phone was often kept with me. When he was too busy, I frequently helped him answer calls. He seemed to never mind these things. I shrugged. Probably to my boss, a phone is just a work tool. Just like me, merely the boss's tool. It had been a long time since I'd been to a bar. After having a few drinks with classmates I hadn't seen in years, my mood got a bit hyped up. Everyone was playing dice and drinking games, and I actively participated. After a few rounds, I started feeling dizzy. Derek looked at me with concern, waving his hand in front of my face. "Isaac, are you all right?" I pressed his hand down. "I'm fine. What are you two doing?" Someone walked over, saw my hand resting on the back of Derek's hand, and jeered. "Are you guys dating?" I quickly pulled my hand back. But somehow, suddenly many people started jeering, someone laughing and shouting. I could tell since high school that Isaac liked Derek. Lovers finally tying the knot. Under the influence of alcohol, everyone started chanting, "Kiss! Kiss!" Amidst the bizarre, shifting lights of the bar, Derek looked at me expectantly. "Isaac!" He called my name with his beautiful lips, and I felt as if I could smell the sweet fragrance of an omega on him. My brain was a chaotic mess, staring blankly at him. He closed his eyes and slowly leaned in toward me. Just as our lips were about to touch, I hurriedly tried to back away, when suddenly someone tugged me forcefully from behind. I was spun around by the momentum, and my lips crashed against an ice-cold muzzle. The rich scent of sandalwood almost made my body go limp. In front of everyone, Elliot clamped his arm around my waist. "Why didn't you dodge? Are you trying to piss me off to death?" I stared into his beautiful yet ice-cold eyes, swallowed hard, and actually involuntarily wanted to draw closer to him. Elliot pressed my head against his shoulder. "Apologies, he's drunk. I'll be taking him home first." Chapter 9. In the hallway outside the bar, my body burning with heat, I pressed Elliot against the wall, tore off his muzzle, and kissed him with desperate impatience. "Isaac!" Elliot pinched my chin and pushed me away. I looked at him in confusion and licked my lips. Elliot's gaze darkened. Suddenly, he reversed our positions, pinned my hands behind my back, and pressed me down from behind. My arms hurt a little, and I couldn't help but struggle. It hurts. It's supposed to hurt, Elliot said coldly. You deserve to hurt. His words made me feel a bit wronged, yet faintly excited, especially after feeling the pheromones he released. Mr. Elliot, I was wrong. I heard my own soft, limp voice. What do you do when you're wrong? When you're wrong, you apologize. Incorrect. Elliot gripped my hands even tighter. Tell me, what do you do when you're wrong? When you're wrong. My thoughts had completely stalled. I don't know. Elliot gave a cold snort and whispered in my ear. If you know you're wrong, you don't run away. I woke up in an unfamiliar hotel room. No one was beside me, but there was the sound of running water from the bathroom. Elliot was probably taking a shower. I sat up and rubbed my temples, my entire body aching. I had drunk way too much last night, and my emotions had spiraled completely out of control. Elliot had tossed me around mercilessly, and in the end, I had actually lain on top of him and cried. I told Elliot he was heartless, biting my scent gland so hard it was covered in teeth marks. I told him I had to wear his clothes every day to fall asleep, making me feel like a pervert. I told him that he called me a playboy, but in reality, I wanted nothing more than to revolve solely around him. I told him he was going to fire me, using me up and throwing me away. Alcohol is the ruin of man. I said everything I should have said and shouldn't have said. Even the matter of the presentation period could no longer be hidden. Damn it. How about I seize the opportunity while he's still in the shower to slip away? Deciding to leave right then and there, I threw off the covers and got out of bed, hurriedly scrambling to put my clothes on. As a result of moving too fast, I stubbed my toe viciously against the corner of the bed. It hurt so much my tears streamed down instantly. Isaac! Elliot came out wrapped in steam, his voice laced with anger. Seeing me sitting on the floor with teary eyes, he immediately ran over and crouched down. It's bleeding. He grasped the front of my foot, his heart aching but still angry. Do you want to run away that badly? I curled my toes back. I'm going to buy medicine and band-aids. Stay there and don't move. 15 minutes later, he returned panting heavily. I was currently on the phone with my mom. My mom was aggressively interrogating me about what I had done to Derek, saying Derek had come home and cried for a long time, telling me to go apologize. She then asked where I had gone last night, and finally said, I knew there was nothing pure between you and that Enigma. Look at you, you finally managed to present as an alpha, and you still end up being the one on the bottom. But if you're serious about him, find some time to have him over for dinner again. Otherwise, it'll just be too suffocating. Elliot sat down next to me, holding my ankle and placing my calf over his leg. I was a bit embarrassed. I can do it myself. Don't move. He held my foot steady and used hydrogen peroxide to clean the blood from under my big toenail. What did your mom say to you? Nothing. I heard it. She told you to bring me home for dinner. I paused for a moment. She misunderstood. I'll explain it to her. Misunderstood what? Elliot applied the band-aid but didn't let go of my foot. Isaac, are you going to abandon me after playing with my feelings again? My eyes widened. Who abandoned you after playing with your feelings? Last time you said we should pretend nothing happened. This time you want to run away again right after sleeping with me. If that's not abandoning someone after playing with their feelings, what is? I almost couldn't catch my breath. Wasn't I just afraid you wouldn't be able to get past the fact that you slept with your assistant? I can get past it, Elliot said immediately, looking at me intently. Why wouldn't I be able to get past sleeping with the person I like? I was shocked. What did you say? I can get past it. The sentence after that. Elliot smiled. I like you. My heart pounded fiercely, and I hurriedly turned my head away. It's because I stayed with you through your presentation period and we have a temporary mark, so it's easy for you to feel impulsive toward my pheromones. It'll be fine after a while. So you don't like me? Elliot interrupted me. I don't like you. I couldn't bring myself to say those words. I lowered my eyes. Do you still prefer omegas? If that's the case, I won't pester you anymore. When you get married, as your boss, I'll even give you a grand gift. Elliot let go of my foot and walked into the bathroom. I sat in a daze for a moment. Ultimately, unable to hold back the emotions in my heart any longer, I rushed into the bathroom and hugged him from behind. I like you, Elliot. I like you. As for the firing, it turned out to be a massive misunderstanding. Elliot said he just wanted to transfer me to a branch office. Even though I couldn't bear to let you go, with your abilities you can't be an assistant your whole life, right? I wanted you to train at the branch office for 2 years, and once you had enough seniority, return to headquarters to take on a more important role. But before I even had the chance to say it, you ran off. Then several headhunters called me asking if you had resigned. Isaac, you almost made me lose a boyfriend and a good employee at the same time. Double kill. Later, I went to the branch office. It wasn't in the same city as headquarters, but it wasn't far. It was just that I was very busy with work and never had time to meet. Once, Elliot came to the branch office for a meeting. During the meeting, I reported on the previous quarter's work summary, and he was very satisfied. After work, he gave me a private commendation in my office. He pushed me down onto the office desk. His shirt and tie were meticulously neat, yet he rubbed me into an absolute mess. Has Mr. Isaac reflected on what is wrong with his recent attitude towards his boss? Wearing his ice-cold muzzle, his tone was freezing, yet his body temperature was scorching hot. I wanted to take off his muzzle to kiss him, but he pinned my hands. Have you reflected? Feeling a bit defiant, I broke free from his grip and pushed him back into the office chair. Elliot raised an eyebrow. Is Mr. Isaac going to rebel? I pulled off the tie hanging loosely around my neck and slowly bound his hands together. Opposing the boss's oppression is everyone's responsibility. Now, it was me who wouldn't allow him to take off the muzzle. He rested his head against my neck, wanting to bite my scent gland, but was blocked by the muzzle, leaving him only able to pant heavily. I grabbed him by the hair at the back of his head, forcing him to look up. His eyes were terrifyingly red, sweat dampening his eyelashes, and the veins on his forehead bulging. He looked incredibly sexy. I said leisurely, Mr. Elliot, have you reflected on what is wrong with your attitude towards your employee? Elliot's eyes narrowed slightly, and he let out a low laugh. Let me reflect a little more. If you enjoyed this story, remember to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.